Hello, 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 and welcome back to a brand new episode of Survivor Social, the Survivor podcast where we discuss Survivor with a focus on the social elements of the game. My name is Tegwyth, and I cannot wait to break down the finale today. I've got two amazing people here. I want to start off with my incredible co-host, Cara. Cara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to talk about the finale. What an episode.
What an episode. What an episode. And I'm so happy to say this. We have an incredible guest to break down the finale with us today. My 43 winner pick, Owen Knight, is here. Owen, how are you?
Hello, hello. I forgot I was your winner pick. That's such a badge of honor. So sorry to let you down, but happy to be here. Glad we get to connect on a pod. I know I've seen you at parties over the years, but yeah, it was a fun finale, a lot of action, and excited to talk about it.
I do want to ask how now that the season is wrapped up, how did you feel about 46 overall? I know that like some people were, said it got off to a slower start, but I think it ended pretty well. What were your thoughts on it, Owen?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It started a little tricky just with the editing and like it not being designed for 90 minutes and just not a lot of action, but at the same time, like that's what we've been clamoring for is like more camp life, this and that. But seeing the final confessional charge with Banu getting such a skewed edit, that certainly had an impact on the first, 4 episodes of the season. But yeah, it was a fun ride the rest of the way with all the blind sides and the big characters. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was trying to think, I do think I have a tough time with 45 versus 46. I'm not sure. I like both of them. And 42 is up there for me as well. But it was a really fun season. I enjoyed watching every week. My friends who aren't quite as deep in the Survivor world as I am, obviously, all really enjoyed it. And it was fun. It was good. I really liked the cast.
Yeah. Cara, how are you feeling about the season now that it's over? Come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I loved this season. I thought the cast was great. Honestly, no complaints. I really did enjoy this season so much. Even if the pre-jury beginning part was a little rocky, I feel like it makes sense for the season. I feel like all of that, I feel like it was the perfect beginning and then it ended great.
I could not agree more. I thought it was a really, really fun season. And the ending, I mean, is one of my favorites that I've watched live. And David versus Goliath was the first season that I watched live. And I felt very similarly this entire time to how I felt when I was watching David versus Goliath. Obviously, very different season, but like my excitement level was very similar to that. And so I think that's a good sign right there. But before we dig into the episode, let me just always say, make sure to like and subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube and Spotify. And as a reminder to anybody watching, we are live right now. And if you have any questions, if you want to just say what's up to Owen or Cara or myself, please make sure to put it in the comments. We love to talk to you guys. But let's dig into the episode. And I do want to start off at the very beginning of the episode, which is what happened right after Q got voted out. Maria was blindsided. Q got voted out with an idol. Maria was blindsided trying to get Charlie out. Very interesting start. How did you feel Maria kind of got that ground back or anything like that? Owen, I'll start with you. How did she deal with all of that?
I think she did pretty much the best she could. I mean, that's a really tough position to be in, kind of getting caught with your pants down. Like, I tried to do this, but, it didn't work. And like, there's this like charade that you both know both her and Charlie know what's up, right? They know what she was trying to pull. And he acknowledged it in his confessional. It's like, look, if she hadn't won immunity, I would have done the exact same thing. So I think game respects game. Like, I'm sure he was not hugely like flabbergasted that it had happened, but it's a tremendously awkward situation to try to like, smooth things over with your number one ally after you write their name down. So I think she did the best that she could.
Yeah. And Cara, on that, how did you feel like Charlie did? Because I thought he, we've seen him have a really good social game. He's won a couple of social butterfly awards from us throughout the season. How did you feel like he did, really keeping that door open?
Yeah, I think he did great with that because he didn't rule her out. Just in case she did win again, he needed to keep that door open. I mean, I'm sure if she won, he might have gone at that point. But I feel like he was trying to still be able to work with her, and I think he did the best he could in that situation too, because that couldn't have been easy for the both of them at that point.
Yeah. And I think that's I think this is the exact thing that you need to do. And I feel like we don't see a ton of like that keeping the door. I mean, we see some of it, right? But I feel like in this new era where it's a condensed game, I feel like your emotions are a little bit more heightened throughout the entire thing. And so if you get blindsided, you're like, I just got blindsided last night and we're going to work together today. I feel like that would be a difficult thing to come back from. Owen, do you think that that's true at all?
Yes, you probably saw me smiling and nodding to that because yeah, I was a very emotional player. Like it's hard to not take things personally and not to like react and like work through your feelings. But you, like you said, you don't really have time to. So, Kara, I completely agree. He handled that really well, keeping the door open. Because then we saw at the final five vote, Maria was kind of telling him her plan. Because maybe she would have found an idol. You never know, and that way he could have been able to leverage that openness that he showed after Hugh went home that night before. So if Maria had an idol, maybe he would have been okay. You never know what would have happened. But, you know, I think he did the best he could, and he was able to compartmentalize his feelings and look at the whole board. And I think that's something I struggled with personally, is like trying to like see to the next couple moves and like move forward without letting the baggage from the previous round kind of shade your decision too much. And yeah, it's no surprise to hear he's won the Social Butterfly Award a couple times. I think he really managed those relationships well. We saw it a lot this past episode with him and Ben, going back to their Dumb and Dumber alliance and just the way they were talking and how supportive he was of Ben. And not to jump too far ahead, but in the fire making practice, I took note on my rewatch of really how genuinely like sweet and kind Charlie came off in his interactions with Ben as Ben was mulling over his decision. So yeah, all the props in the world to Charlie on how he handled this move and final tribal and everything after.
Absolutely. And I think on that, I think a really good pin in the hat, or whatever the saying is, for Charlie's social game is the fact that Ben was willing to take Charlie to the end. You know, I feel like in other seasons, we would have seen maybe Charlie and Kenzie go to Final Fire. And this time, you know, that close bond that they did have, I think really showed that Charlie had an incredible social game. And I've heard this on multiple other podcasts and in conversations that I've had with people, I mean, Charlie was a really beautifully well-rounded Survivor player. He had like pretty much everything that you could ask for in a Survivor player. He was, you know, smart, kind. He had strategy, but he kept doors open, but he didn't have too big of a target. And so I think that's why this Final Tribal Council was incredibly interesting from a viewer's standpoint, because at one point I genuinely was like, it could be a tie. I genuinely thought it could be a tie. Did either of you think that at all?
Yes, definitely. I really thought it was going to end in a tie.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea going in, and it's just like the tension, and you could see the tide kind of turning at Final Tribal, but it was definitely a nail biter. I mean, that's as close as it gets.
That is truly as close as it gets, and it's happened 2 seasons in a row. 5-3 vote 2 seasons in a row.
And we had what was it, 4 7-1-0s in a row, so it's nice to see things get shaken up a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say I would love to see like a 6-1-1 at some point. I would love to see somebody in that third spot get a vote. I'm not trying to pander to my audience here.
I agree. Great take.
Right take, right? But I do have a question about that, Owen. Do you think that there's a reason why we keep seeing a 0 vote finalist? What is it, since season 39 on? Do you think it's just because the jury wants to vote correctly, or do you think there's a reason why there's usually a person who doesn't get a vote?
Yeah, and I think it even goes to 36 even. So it's been a long time, and you know, I wasn't a juror, so it's not fair for me to speculate. But I remember 2 years ago thinking like, yeah, they do to a degree. I think they do want to be correct. Like I think they want to vote for the person that is going to represent their season. And I do think that there is at least an element of like coming to like a group consensus. But I don't know, like that might just be my own, you know, perspective and experience kind of tainting that. But I think there is like, I don't know. I think it's harder to like take a stand and say, no, you know what? I'm going to vote for Ryan Ulrich. Who cares? Like if he wins or not, that's my buddy. I'm going to do it anyway. So I think maybe there is a tiny bit of that. And I think the structure of the game, like just the way a final 3 works compared to a final 2, it's tough because like it comes down to obviously the fire making, and then the big threat obviously is widely considered to go out at 4, the kind of fallen angel position, whatever that might be. But I don't know. I think a final two is better overall, but then you get into that whole circular discussion of, well, is it then just the obvious winner and the goat, or whatever happens there? But I think forced fire making is partially to blame. I think just the structure of the jury and the way the discussion works. I don't know. I don't know. I hope I'm not coming across a little too salty about it, but it sucks. Like, it really sucks for that person who gets third, because at a certain point, it just kind of feels like you're going through the motions and you're just ready for it to be over, and you can kind of see the writing on the wall, and you're just like, this blows. Like, just get me out of here. Let me go take a shower. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it'll evolve moving forward, just since it has been so long.
Yeah. And I always think that, like, I think that if you change it up, like keeping the season structure different each time, I think is an interesting thing for both the viewers and the players. And I'm not saying to like blindside somebody with the final two at the end. I always, that the one time it happened, I do think that was a little like sketch. But, or like, do a final fire out of nowhere. But like, I was thinking over this past week, what if you start the season and Jeff outlines how the season structure is going to be, not when there's a merge, but saying, hey, this season you guys are going to actually have a final two, or this season we're not going to do fire at the merge. You say something like that so that the players can kind of like, plan for that a little bit. But it's also not, it's just kind of different and different than what they originally thought going into the game. I think it would be interesting. You don't have to do the same thing every single time. And I don't think that these changes would be super like difficult to implement. You know what I mean? And I do think that it would be relatively interesting to see. I would love to see final two. I know I saw somebody in the comments say final two. Randy said final two all the way. Would you, Cara, would you want a final two?
Yeah, I would love to see them switch it up and throw in a final two. I do feel bad watching when we see the third person who comes in third. Like, you lay everything out there, just not even to get a single vote. And I feel like that's so, like, that can't feel good, like, you're doing everything that the other two are doing. Like, why not me, So I think it would be nice to see a final two.
I think it'd be interesting.
I do too. And one other thing, I think starting with two tribes could be a good thing to do, especially now that we have the 90 minutes. You do have room maybe for a larger cast. Maybe you go up to 20, or I've been saying this for a while. If you do 18, who cares if it's an even number of men and women on each tribe? It leaves the door open for more non-binary people as well. Like, there are definite ways that you could shake it up and do a two tribe season. But yeah, I think variety is the spice of life, as they say. I loved that in Cagayan it was a final two and that people knew, and it was just like kind of random. I think that's great. I think, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's, keep us guessing, keep the viewers guessing. It is a TV show after all. If we can expect something, it's not as interesting. Speaking of that, I know we're kind of fast forwarding to the end, but I did want to talk about, did you notice, and I bet Owen noticed, Owen, did you have the separate island? You did, right?
We did. And I did notice that they did not do that this year. And I was like, those sons of bitches. I was jealous because, like, it's one of those things that's like, did it have a huge impact on the game? No. But as one of the 5 people left in the game at that point, it's annoying. Like, it's just like, and I guess that's the point. It's to like discombobulate you a little bit and like get you on edge and kind of hammer home that, like, things are picking up. We're headed to the end of the game. It's intense. But I was jealous that they did not do that. And I'm curious why, because I imagine part of it is that they want to start preparing the beaches for the upcoming season, since there's only like a week or two in between the filming. But yeah, I found that interesting that they chose not to do it, which is good, because like we were just saying, like, the formulaic nature of the new era has, I don't want to say necessarily been detrimental, but shaking it up a bit could be good. So it's nice to know production is open to amending some of those formats.
Yeah. And I will say, I thought it was interesting that he didn't even, like, Jeff didn't point it out either. They just kind of like, breezed past it. And so a lot of people didn't notice it. Cara, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And also during Fire, when they said, like, they didn't give them any of the supplies to prep, which was different for this season. So it is interesting to see the different things that they're doing, the small little things.
Yeah. And I've always said like that island thing didn't really do anything for the viewers. I think it was you, Owen, who I remember hearing from an interview saying like it's annoying for us, but it doesn't really change anything for the viewers. So what is really the point? And I know it's to make people, but I mean it's a TV show. Like at the end of the day, it's to make it into the twists are supposed to be there to entertain the viewers. And if that twist doesn't really entertain or change the way we would see it, then what's really the point? And so I was very pleasantly surprised that did not happen this season, which made me think, do you think there was an idol hidden? Maria and Charlie were looking. Do you think because there was no like quiz to go get an advantage at that final immunity either, you know, all of that was kind of gone. So I feel like they just didn't rehide an idol.
I don't know, because I feel like it's precedent that there is always an idol available up to the final 5. So I imagine there was one, and they talked about it, but they didn't really show a lot of the search. But no, I imagine that there was, and it just didn't get found. That's an interesting question though. But I think the advantage search and all of that, I think it speaks to the like production, like realizing what is like worth the effort. You know, I always say like the juice isn't worth the squeeze a lot. And I think, the new island is one of those things that doesn't translate all that well to television. As a player, it was like discombobulating and stressed us out. But yeah, you don't really get a lot of that. And they never really showed us like talking about it, like, oh, what a pain in the butt this is. You know, they just kind of yada yada through it. So I'm perfectly okay with that going. And Jay in the comments pointed out that 46 was the second one in the cycle this year. So they didn't need to like prepare for the upcoming season. So perhaps that played a point. So good catch, Jay.
Oh yeah, that's a really good catch. That's very interesting to take into account also the fact that you have to prep for the next season. It's going to be a quick turnaround. It's something that I don't really consider when I think about the seasons in general. And I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about.
I think just a quick another point there. I think that's part of the reason why the like go back to 39 days discourse is really wishful thinking. I do think in the future, maybe they could go to like 30, 31, something like that. But when you think about it, 2 39-day seasons back to back with like a week in between, like that is such a huge time commitment. And now that they've discovered that they can produce a show that wins the ratings and costs, 30% less or whatever, like people just need to be realistic. Do I wish it was 39 days still? Absolutely, I do. But like, it's just from a production standpoint and like realizing that this is a business and that the crew is like 300-400 people, like it's not going to happen. I really, really doubt we'll be seeing 39 anytime soon. But I do think like 30 or 31 could be a decent middle ground that's still manageable for the crew and for production and wouldn't be too cost prohibitive. But I think it would let the game breathe a little bit more.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to do something for 50. I feel like they'll either extend the game a little bit, or I don't know. I do feel like they're going to want to give returning players a little bit more time. And I think that'll be interesting, not to, kind of go way far off of 46, but I'm really excited to see what will happen for 50 in the sense of like the people who are new era people who are used to the 26 days versus people who are in either old school or new school who are not. And I think that that'll be a really interesting thing to like, if it stays 26, new era's got a leg up on everybody else. And I think it'll be really, really interesting, not to talk too much futuristic stuff, but I just think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And more days would allow for more players too. That way they could do a 20-person season and like not have to do too rushed of a schedule.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Yeah. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of the episode. There was a moment that I thought was really interesting and I think could speak a little bit on Maria's social game, where there was a moment where Liz was, Liz was talking about how happy she was that he was gone and in this confessional. And then right after that, Maria's coming back to the fire and they're all, talking, and Maria goes, "Wow, you guys got me. You all are playing harder than I thought." Which is a really, obviously, it could be a slip of the tongue, it could be whatever, but I think in that point of the game, that is a big mistake. Because obviously there are going to be people who think that, they're easier to beat or whatever, but everyone is there in the final 5 for a reason. even if you're playing hard or not playing hard. But that kind of a comment, I feel like, would rub pretty much everybody the wrong way. And when she said that, I went, oh no. And I think in that moment, I felt in my bones that Maria was going to go out at 5. But in that moment, I was like, that she's not gonna be here, because it's a very small moment, but it's not only like she's hard to beat in challenges, but she also is maybe saying some things that people aren't, loving. Did either of you clock that moment at all?
Yeah, I thought it was a weird thing to say, especially like it was just a weird thing to say overall. That pretty much is all I have to say about it.
Yeah, I would not have received that very well if I was on the beach. And yeah, it's hard, especially just like given the final 5 we had, they hadn't been kind of the main strategic drivers of the season. It was kind of parallels to my season in certain ways, where like you just feel like this group is almost like the outcasts or the disrespected, or like the people who are viewed a little goatier than other people's. And it must be hard to hear that and just say like, no, I've been playing the whole time, because obviously everyone is the main character of their own life and their own experience. And so to hear someone it was a little reductive at best, just to say like, oh, you've just been coasting or whatever. But I'm sure she didn't necessarily mean it that way. But I imagine, I imagine it, as soon as it came out, she was probably like, oh shoot, I should have like said that differently. But yeah, it is what it is. But I really think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to say is, like you said, like you saw the writing on the wall. I started seeing that with kind of like the rock, paper, scissors scenario, and just like certain like faux pas, I guess, that just went over in a way that I think would have made it a really uphill battle at Final Tribal. But we kept hearing the other players say like she would have mopped the floor with us and she would have won. So I'm curious what would have happened, because I think she would have been a great winner. She had a great read on the game. She positioned herself really well. She played the 6. She had Charlie. Like she really navigated the experience really well, especially given her like age and being a woman. Like a lot of times those players get really put into a box and disrespected and not given opportunities to kind of take the reins strategically. So I wish I would have loved to see her kind of argue that out. But yeah, that was a bad slip of the tongue there.
And I think in that moment, it just reminded me, obviously it's a 24/7 game, but I think sometimes as viewers, we forget that. I forget that, at least. And in that moment, it's nighttime. You just got back from a tribal council. You just got blindsided. And literally when I thought, I think she'll be done. But I also was just like, oh, wow, this is also a 24/7 game. You're not always going to be on all the time. And you're going to say something wrong at some point. You're going to have a slip of the tongue. You're going to say something that you might regret later on in terms of gameplay. And that moment really did remind me of that fact. That you have to be on 24/7, and that's basically impossible. So
it is. At least there's not live feeds.
Yeah. Oh God. All of the comments in my TikToks were like, we should get Survivor live feeds. And I was like, please, no. I'm begging, like, no. It will never happen. It'll never happen. But like, God, no.
Another reason why it won't happen is because it is 10:30 in the morning in Fiji right now. So like the time difference would just be horrible. And yes, I still have Fiji time saved on my phone.
Oh, that's incredible. That's so good. When the 47 trailer aired, we have someone who we met through like the Survivor world who's going to be on 47. And we're very, 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 very excited for him. I like cried when I saw him on there. Baby Andy.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very excited for him as well. He's an RJP patron. So
he's incredible.
I've met him a couple times. Yeah.
He's so incredible. We met him at a Bryson One Presents in 2021, I think. And he lived in the city at the time and we were just friends. And then he moved to Boston. Ugh. No, I'm sorry to all the Bostonians. I just mean he moved away from York. But when we saw that, we were like, what time is it in Fiji right now? Like we got to see, is he asleep? Is he awake? It was 3:30. We think a challenge had just ended. It was very exciting. Okay, but back to the show. We go to the Final 5 immunity challenge. Big controversy here over the Final 5 immunity. Liz obviously helped Kenzie to beat Maria. How do we all feel about this? Nay, we have some nays over here. Oh, and you go ahead and start.
That would have, Maria has so much composure. I was really, really, really impressed by her because that would have aggravated me. I mean, I know there are like standards and practices, people like I know they do a lot to make sure the game is fair, but that to me kind of blurred the lines of like, is this within the rules? Maybe, but is it like get good, like is this sportsmanlike? And I don't know, that like kind of blurred the lines to me. But I get it, like if you feel it's a game for $1 million, you got to do what you got to do. I don't hold it against Liz and Kenzie, but yeah, that was just like and especially because like Maria's going for the record, like that just would have felt really, really crappy. Kara, what do
Yeah.
you think?
Mhm. Yeah, as a viewer, it was interesting to see. It was kind of fun to see something different happen where Liz was helping Kenzie. But if I was there in that moment, I don't think I would have been too happy about it if someone was ganging up against me to so I wouldn't win the challenge. But it was interesting to watch that and like see that play out in the episode.
Mhm. And before anyone comes for me, since I was part of a collusion effort on 43, Vessi helped us with our puzzle to send Coco to their first tribal council. I was pissed about that at the time. Like, I did not want that. Like, that didn't feel like a win to me. I felt really, really icky about that. Like, I did not care for that happening. Like, I would have rather lost. And Loki, it would have been so much better for my game if we had lost and the Gabler Ellie scenario would have just settled itself in the pre-merge. Like, it's so funny to think like just the small things that maybe could have changed the course of the game. But anyway, yeah, it's just to me that's a little like below the belt. I don't know.
So I'm gonna be a contrarian here. It did not bother
Oh,
me at all.
wow.
Because here's the thing. I guess when it comes to Survivor for me, obviously there needs to be rules, but in my head, it's like all is fair in love and war, and that's kind of how I approach Survivor. Obviously, I don't know really how it feels to play Survivor, so I don't even want to pretend to think how I would feel. I will say when people cheat at Monopoly, it annoys me because I'm a rule follower. But the rules are very clearly stated in Monopoly, so I feel like it's slightly different. But in the moment, I truly was like, what an interesting choice that Liz made that I think we really haven't seen that often before. And I love
Mhm.
when something different happens, especially in challenges, which I truly don't normally care for challenges. And this felt like
Mhm.
a strategy, a social, like something slightly different other than just like this physical thing that was going on. And so it truly like I was like, that's wild. How did she even think to do that? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Which is why it didn't really bother me that much. If this is the norm, I
Mhm.
do think it would bother me. Like if people see this and they're like, okay, we can now help each other all the time, then I think it would bother me. But
Mhm.
like as a one-off, I feel like maybe if I was in Maria's shoes, I wouldn't love it. But also maybe I don't know. I don't know. I kind of liked it.
And it was unexpected too. Like I feel like I didn't expect Liz to help Kenzie. I feel like we where did that relationship come from? Or even not
Yeah.
relationship, but just like I want to help Kenzie to get this over Maria, you know? Like it was unexpected, I feel like. So
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't hate
But
that take because I think one of the great things about Survivor is that there's very, very limited rules actually. So like they're pushing the envelope, they're asking forgiveness instead of permission. Like I'm sure it would open up a whole can of worms if they allowed it to continue. Like imagine like a whole tribe tackling Jonathan at the start of an obstacle course or something like that. But
Yeah.
you know, you make a really good point. Like it's like it's not against the rules explicitly. I just think it goes against the spirit of competition, but that's just me. But yeah, I see where you're
I
coming from,
I
100%.
think you're right. And it's, it's just one of those things. I think it comes back to when I first started watching Survivor, the first season that Ryan showed me, my boyfriend showed me, was Survivor China. And I vividly remember being so mad that they went through James's bag. I was
Mhm.
like, I cannot believe how dare they? That's an invasion of privacy. Can they? Are you kidding me? I was so mad. I was like seeing red. And I think now that like I look back on that and like how silly that was, like, oh, you dumb little naive new Survivor fan. Like obviously you can feel however you feel, but like the way I feel now is very different. And so I think whenever something new happens, I'm kind of like excited about it.
Mhm.
And then I feel like I need more time to process whether or not I actually like it or if it's like a kind of a fun thing. And I'm still kind of on the It's kind of a fun
Mhm.
little thing. But
I
no,
thought
I
you
get.
were
Go
for a
ahead. Go
China
ahead.
reference. I thought you were going to reference PG and Jamie throwing the challenge to vote
Ooh.
to go to tribal. Yeah.
I also didn't
Um,
like that. Let me just
no,
say, I
I did
also
not like
didn't
that
like that.
either.
I don't know if I think I still don't like that. I'm not a huge fan of a throwing the challenge, which this is kind of throwing a
Yeah.
challenge.
A
Throwing a
little bit,
challenge in
yeah.
the
It's in the same kind of
Yeah.
wheelhouse to where
yeah.
it's like it's part of it. I get it. Plus, I think Kara, to your point, like it is kind of a calculated like risk because basically Liz is saying like I'm sacrificing any chance Maria has of voting for me if I make it to the end to pull this
Yeah.
off. So like there is kind of some weight to the decision. So there's
Yeah.
an argument there too.
It's
Mhm.
very, very interesting moment, and I do not think that I would really care to talk about this challenge had that not happened. Because I do think that
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't love the, like, multiple stage final like, at this point in the game, I don't love, like, a multiple stage challenge. I find them not super interesting.
Mhm.
I think it's more interesting in the beginning of the merge. But this late in the game, I kind of wanna see, and I know it's not great for production, but I kind of wanna see who's willing to last the longest. Who's like, "I'm going
Mhm.
to fight as long as I possibly can." Um, do you have any, oh, and I see you're nodding your head. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I do. Particularly for final immunity, I really think Hands on the Hard Idol is a perfect challenge. Or Australian Survivor has been killing it with their final immunity challenges. Like
Yeah.
that's really like it's about outlasting, right? Like that's part of the like the three tenets of Survivor. And I really think it's a beautiful like representation of what the game is about is like, hey, what are you willing to put yourself through to win this game? And yeah, I do think that element of just like the human willpower is it's a bit of an equalizer. Like it doesn't matter how strong fast you are, like it's just one of those things. It's all about mental fortitude. So yeah, I would prefer to see that for the final five. It doesn't bother me quite as much, but yeah, for final four I would have preferred something a little bit more like stand on this thing for as long as you can. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I get it. It's a tight schedule, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we saw that with Last Gasp. Like they took us out of the water because the tide was going down. Like season 10, they left them on those buoys for what, 13 hours or something.
Yep.
But then again, they got
Mhm.
nerve damage in their feet. So like at what cost? So there's
Yeah.
pros and cons to both. But
Yeah.
yeah, I,
Totally.
I am pro endurance challenges for sure.
And also, like, they're good at,
Yeah.
like, making them harder so that they don't last as long. They've made the little
Mhm,
foot pegs on the pole
Mhm. Sure.
smaller. They've made it so
mhm,
that you can't move your back on the one that, Christian Hubicki won.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
it's not like
Mhm.
literally go stand on a pole now, like how, like, in Amazon where they would just, like, literally stand on a pole. Like, it's a little bit different. So I feel like there are some that only last, like, 30 minutes.
mhm.
Um so I
Yeah.
don't know. I think I would love to see that, and I just love to see people, fighting it out there at the end. Um, so we see
Totally.
Kenzie take Ben to the sanctuary. Um, because Liz is allergic to pasta. We had to have one more allergy boss that Liz had to fight, and it was pasta. And so she didn't go on the challenge or didn't go to the reward. And it was Ben and Kenzie, the survivor besties. And they decided there that the
Mhm.
common goal was to make sure Maria doesn't win or doesn't get to the end, doesn't go any further, and it's Maria's time. Um,
Mhm.
and obviously, that's what we saw at the end of this portion. Maria ended up going home, very clear vote. But she was trying to get people to go for Liz. Or no, sorry, Ben. She was trying to get people to go for
Ben.
Ben. And I thought that was an interesting choice. I
Mhm.
think she would have had more ears if she was going after Charlie. And I
Mm.
would love to hear your thoughts on if she went for somebody else, if you think things would have changed. Owen, did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I did think it was an interesting choice. There's been some like breadcrumbs leading up to that, though. We saw the secret scene after Tim went home of Maria kind of coming to Ben and being like, "So what's the deal with this idol?" I think it's come out that like she had seen them passing a note from Ben's journey, something like that. So sure, her antennas were up regarding Ben. But I agree with you. I think pitching Charlie would have made a little bit more sense, and she could make the same argument that's been being made about her. Like, he's a great social player. He's been a part of the strategy. He could win at the end. I think that's a tougher sell to say, Ben would get a ton of votes at the end, because as we saw, he did not. And unfortunately, like, it's probably like a realistic like guess for them to have made. So yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Charlie would have been a better sell. What do you think, Cara?
She's really thinking on it.
Oh, I guess she froze. Oh no.
She froze. Let me we'll try to get Cara back really quickly, but while we're waiting on her thoughts on this, I do you think that people would have gone for it? Do you think it would have still been Maria if she said, guys, I know that I wanted Charlie last night, here's why. Do you think anybody would have had bites?
That's really hard for me to say. Ben, I don't think would have gone for it. So I guess she would then need to pitch Liz and Kenzie. Yeah. I don't know. I think Charlie's social game might have won out. Like, if you think, say, just for the sake of argument, Liz is the pivotal vote there, like, you could take it all back to the rock, paper, scissors and the rewards and everything. And like, Liz laid it out all on the line by grabbing Kenzie's plank for her in the challenge. Like, her intentions were pretty clear. So that makes me think it would have been a no either way Maria pitched it. But I think she would have had a better chance pitching Charlie.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think you're right. And I think, it would have been interesting, but I think at that point, when you are the biggest threat, there's really nothing you can do except or if you are the perceived biggest threat, right? It's all about perception. I think there's really nothing you can do other than just finding an idol. Unless you are a wizard with words, unless you can really, make people think that you're going to lose, change their own perception of you. I think it's an uphill battle. That is going to be difficult to come back from. I think we've got Cara back.
Sorry about that.
I'm good.
No worries. Cara, what do you think? We were just talking about whether or not we think Maria pitching Charlie would have changed anything. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, maybe she could have had a case there, but I feel like Ben and Kenzie were so team Charlie that I don't think it would have worked. And I feel like they would have just looked at Maria in a bad light. I don't think they would have liked that. I don't think it would have went over well, so I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah. And I mean, there is a moment where Kenzie looks at Maria point blank, and Maria's like, I gotta go, Ben. You should go, Ben, because of blah, blah, blah. And she goes, I don't think I can beat you, Maria. Like, yeah. that is a hard to come back from, I think, which is great. But like, this is when having all of the eyes on you, it's like a really hard thing to come back from. I will note when we go to tribal council, Tiffany was very happy that Kenzie had an idol. She was like very happy, which was great. And then we saw Maria go home. It was very sad.
It was. One quick thing on Kenzie telling Maria to her face that she couldn't beat her. I think that's where Kenzie started getting Maria's vote, is building her up like that. I think that really did like leave a good taste in Maria's mouth. Like certain ways people go out of the game, it can be really off-putting. It can really sour your opinion on someone. It can really like taint everything that's happened leading up to that point. But I think Kenzie, whether intentionally or not, started doing some damage control, starting to understand what kind of like personality Maria is and how she would receive that as a compliment, which it is. But certain, like, I would take that as like a compliment, but I'd be like, well, screw you. I don't care what you think. Like, that would still be really upsetting. But I think Maria was able to soften the blow a bit. And so that, I think that was, a big, not a big necessarily, but like part of the things that led to Kenzie getting Maria's vote in the end.
I think that's a great take. I think that's exactly right. I think the thing that when you go to Final Tribal Council, at least as a viewer, it looks like, I think the people there need to just reaffirm what the jury already thinks about their game or already thinks about them as a person. And I think if you're laying the groundwork for you know, I'm telling you as it is, and I'm, you know, I've already told you that I'm honest before because you saw that I said all these things, and then you reaffirm that at Final Tribal Council. I think it's a great thing for, you know, the jury and to get those votes because like you're like, I'm not going against what I had said earlier. I'm saying exactly the same thing, just in a different way. And I think you're 1,000% correct with that, you know, kind of laying the groundwork for Maria to vote for Kenzie.
Yeah.
It hits different before the vote compared to when she's walking up to bring her torch to Jeff, being like, "Good job, you were so great." Like it's way less patronizing in that way.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
I think you're totally right.
that makes sense.
Totally right. We're now at the final four. 4 people left: Charlie, Ben, Liz, and Kenzie. I just wanted to say one of my favorite phrases. Liz has had great phrase after great phrase this season, but the one that stuck out to me this episode: "Holy hot dog on a stick, I made it."
That was good.
That should have been the name of the episode. It was not. The name of the episode was Friends Going to War, but holy hot dog on a stick, I made it. Incredible. Incredible. Liz is so good.
Done better. Yeah. Gold. Liz was great. I mean, the whole Mima bit at the final 5 as well. That was good. Her wrists, where we'll get to the wrists, but yeah,
her wrist.
Oh my gosh.
churning out the lines.
Oh, she's such good television. She is also, and I think that we really saw in this last episode, you know, her, like, people were discounting Liz a lot, like viewers at least. And I think this episode we saw her strategy and we saw it more come to light. And I don't think that she just started at the final 5. You know, and I think got more of it. I'm a huge Liz fan, and I think she was a great cast by, you know, the producers and Jeff for the season. I love Liz.
She's a great Twitter follow as well.
Oh, she is. I do want to talk about something really quickly. This is about the Final Tribal Council and early jury versus late jury, and like people still in the game. Because when Liz was like, Kenzie talked about how Liz kind of was a threat, and Ben obviously told Liz to her face that, like, you know, I'm putting you in fire because, you know, I think you're a threat, and when that was said at Final Tribal Council, at that Final 4, we saw some like faces from the jury. And obviously the fans were like, Liz is the biggest threat. Like, what? Obviously, like, she might not be the biggest threat, but I do think there's something to say about early jurors' perception of the game and the players versus the late jurors' perception of the game and the players. Because I do think there is a disconnect. Because, for example, Soda didn't really even get to know the people because she was merged for one vote and then separated basically for the next one. And I just think it's a very interesting thing. I think it harkens back to like David versus Goliath, where, you know, basically everyone in the early part voted for Nick, and everyone in the late said like Mike White changed the way we play is going to play Survivor forever. He's like an incredible blah blah blah. And I just think this is kind of a example of this, where people who played like Kenzie, Ben, talking about Liz's game. And I would love to hear y'all's opinions on that kind of divide.
Yeah, I think definitely like the early jurors are looking at it more of like a game, like watching it more as a viewer with, I guess, more intel kind of, because they're getting to hear what the other jurors are coming in and saying to them. And even Soda kind of said like her Survivor like fan, like viewer, whatever, brain is wanting to vote for Charlie, but her heart wanted to vote for Kenzie. So I feel like it is like so different being so early on and later, and especially the late jury members that come in right at the end, like Liz and Maria. Like, you're still cooling down from being in the game and having maybe being blindsided or whatever happened to you, you know? So it is so different. I would imagine that it would be so different being on the jury in those two different scenarios.
I completely agree. And I think part of it also is like, you're not just thinking of how a juror is going to react to you. You also need to think about how the jury is going to speak about you at Ponderosa and paint the picture of you to everybody else. Because like you think about like Janine missed 2 weeks of gameplay in 43, right? Like she didn't know exactly how things went down towards the end. She's only hearing the second, third hand accounts of it. So yeah, it's one of those things that's like, I guess, a little imperfect for just the way like things are. Because like, there was a period where I was like, maybe we should sequester the jury. Like maybe that would lead to like less landslide votes at the end. But then it's like, what are they going to base it on? Just tribal council? That's probably not enough to garner or to glean the information that they need. But like, I don't know, it can just become this like slippery slope in this game of telephone to where if one person gets sent out of the game and they just start saying all this stuff, you never know how it could shake out with those early jurors who weren't there and barely know these people in certain cases. So it is interesting. I think, what was it with Ghost Island? It was split similarly with the Dom Wendell votes as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's definitely something to it, but I think figuring out how to like game that is tough, because in the game when you're playing, you don't like, that's almost too many layers to the strategy, at least for me. Maybe there's other people out there who are capable of like moving the pieces in that perfect way. But when you talk about jury management, I think it's a much deeper like task than people realize, because it's not just about that one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would also like even say like Ponderosa is almost like its own game. Like it's obviously an extension of the game, but it's almost like its own little insular kind of thing where, the world of the game is obviously happening separately, but the game still goes on. Because
if only they documented that and released a YouTube series that showed what was happening in that second game.
That's a really good idea. Have they ever? Someone should do that.
Yeah,
someone writes it down. Let's say I've got this great idea. Owen came up with it.
It would get dozens of views.
So true. Well, here's the thing. I do also want to say, I will say that I think if we're talking, I kind of want to talk about Kenzie's game overall. Obviously, we still have Final Tribal Council to talk about, and obviously Final Fire. But in the jury, I think it's so important. Like, they're all having their own conversations. All they see of the game, like we said, are tribal councils, and everything else is hearsay from other people's perspectives. I think having a cheerleader on the jury is like the most important thing. And Tiffany being a very loud cheerleader for Kenzie, I think did wonders for Kenzie's Final Tribal Council performance. I think did wonders for other people's perception of Kenzie at Ponderosa. And I sometimes wonder if Kenzie had actually gone after Tiffany, would that have changed? But she didn't get any blood on her hands. She was also blindsided. So it was we got blindsided together. I'm going to cheer you on. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you win, kind of a thing. And I just would love to hear, and I'll start with you, your perspective of like having that cheerleader on the jury and what it does for you.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with everything you said. Like, that, I think, was pivotal to Kenzie's win. And I think it kind of kicks the whole like resume, be on the right side of every vote kind of philosophy out the window, right? Like, you can see you can be blindsided and still win the game. Like, I think there's a lot to be said for not having that blood on your hands, not leaving a bad taste in your mouth. And it makes me question, like, look, I know any thought exercise I do, huge caveat, I know I was never going to win, but like, maybe I could have gotten a vote or two if I hadn't thrown in the towel on Janine, if I had tried to stay with Sammy and make something happen. Like, maybe like going with the pack to try to lay low and like live to fight another day, that might have allowed me to stay in longer, but maybe that leaves other people feeling like, damn, you kind of hung me out to dry. So I think there is some merit to that, for sure. And yeah, Tiffany really was riding for her girl, and I respect the hell out of that. I really do. And I wish I had someone like that on my jury, because yeah, it's a good friend right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kara, what do you think about that?
You even see, like, right when she started talking, she said no Taylor Swift jokes or lyrics or no pop culture or whatever. So immediately right off the bat, you know that she's rooting for Kenzie, and she's telling everyone else, like, we want Kenzie. And I think having someone like that on the jury is great. And I feel like maybe Charlie might have thought Maria would have been that for him too, which we saw not really be the case, which is disappointing for him,
Yeah, he actually even says when they're basically all talking about voting out Maria, I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, he said he wanted to solidify Maria as his champion if she goes home tonight. And, that is something that is very hard to do, because you're never going to know how you're going to feel or your closest ally is going to feel with being voted out and also having you be a part of it. You know, you might think that you're going to be great and take it on the chin and you're going to be like, I'm going to support you no matter what. But, you know, it could be different. And I'm not saying that's what Maria did. You know, she said she voted for Kenzie rather than against Charlie. But, you know, not being that overt cheerleader, I do think changed a little bit of the jury. If you see somebody and you know they were supposedly best friends throughout this whole thing, and they're not gassing them up and being like, yeah, you did that, and you know, I can totally agree with you on that, or whatever it is. Maybe the other jurors are like, why is that the case? Even if it's subconscious, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Final Tribal Council and the jury is so interesting, and that's why Survivor is still like so interesting because, and I've said this 1,000 times because the internet is going nuts over Final Tribal Council. But like, you know, the internet's, I keep saying, like, even if it were the same, you know, setup every single season and it's the same, you know, final three, the jury could have, you know, a completely different take on what the final three did because that's the game of Survivor, and that's what makes it so interesting. And I just love it.
Yeah. And we really saw how much this final tribal council, like, and the answers and everything and the questions played into who was the winner in the end. Like, even when Jeff asked, like, who changed their vote just after this, like, a bunch of them raised their hands, you know? So, yeah.
How many? It was like 5 people, right? It was, I think Q raised his hand. I think
Hunter,
Venus. I think, I don't know if Venus did. It was a lot of people.
Maybe Liz. Yeah.
Maria did not. I did notice that.
Maria did not.
She did not.
Maria did not. Exactly. Let's just talk about Final Tribal Council a little bit more. I want to say, I think this was a really good Final Tribal Council from all 3 people. I think that they all answered the questions really well. Did you guys feel like the Final Tribal Council almost felt like the old version where each person got like a question, but it was still open for discussion? Maybe, because I kind of felt like it was like that. Or do you think it was just edited like that?
It was a bit of a hybrid. I tweeted this in the middle of the episode. I was like, do they always talk this much? Like, it felt very discussion heavy. Like, I mean, there was the Yanu infighting, which was kind of cute, like them bickering like they had been all season. But there were moments where I was a little frustrated for the final 3. I was like, could you let them talk and answer the questions? The timer thing, don't get me started on that. I did not personally love that. That would have made me really upset as like sitting there if someone had done that to me. But I get it. I actually, in hindsight, my reaction is not quite as strong as it was in the moment. In the moment, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is terrible. But now I'm like, okay, I get where they're going with this. I get where they're going. But yeah, I felt it was a little like they're going in the right direction. Because I think it's been a little too nebulous over the past couple, since they went to that wit out play out last. They stopped making it quite as segmented. And on ours, they did like physical, social, survival, or strategic, social, physical was how they did it. And now it's a bit more amorphous, but yeah, I didn't love how much chatter there was. I liked it when it was just a specific question, a specific answer, next person. I also did not enjoy that there were no opening statements. Our first question was asked in a way that would allow us to give an opening statement. So it was kind of an opening statement disguised as a question, but Jesse's question was like, what is your Survivor story, Ben? And like a little peek behind the curtain, the final 3, you do have time to kind of think about what your pitch is going to be at Final Tribal. And ours was explained to us, like, you're going to have 1 minute to say your Survivor story and kind of open off your argument. And I thought it was really odd that this final 3 did not get that. So that kind of made me frustrated and kind of like discombobulated me from the jump of watching Final Tribal, honestly.
Yeah, I would have liked to see some opening statements by them. And I also did not really like the 30 seconds because I feel like they're in the middle of giving their answer, talking, and you're just going to cut them off. Like, what if the next thing they were going to say could have made a difference? You know, I don't know. I didn't think it needed to be so cut and dry with that.
Who asked that? Because I know Tiffany was the timer, but I don't think Tiffany was the one who...
Soda. And I actually really liked the question. It was like basically like change my perception of you was essentially the question, or like confirm it or change it. And 30 seconds is tough. At the same time, though, not gonna lie, like there were moments in my final tribal council where I wish there was a timer because Gabler can be a little verbose, and there were moments where I was like, shit, I should have talked longer if they're gonna allow these comments to be so long. But yeah, I just thought 30 seconds is tight. Maybe 1 minute, I would have been a little bit happier.
Yeah, I think that there was also, I mean, that was one of the controversies of the final tribal council questions. The other one was Q's question, which was, what are you going to do with this, or how is it going to affect your life? And I think I'm also in the minority on this, where that didn't bother me either. Where I know a lot of people did not like that question, and they did not like the fact that Q based his vote off of that question. Cara, did you feel one way or the other about this one?
Yeah, I did not like that question at all. I don't think I feel like everyone is there. Everyone's playing for something. It doesn't matter what it is. Everyone deserves the money. If you make it to the end, you deserve to win. That's how I feel. And I feel like that being the deciding factor in who's going to spend the money the best way, or whatever. I didn't like the question. I think it just discredits the whole game that someone just played, just because this is how they're going to spend the money after the show. When you just played 26 days of a whole game just for not to matter, just because now you're going to do something with the money. I don't know. I was not a fan of that at all.
Yeah, I didn't love it either. Hi, Ryan. I see him in the back there. Because like I think, Cara, you said it really well. It's like, what's the point of doing all this if we're just going to say who needs the money the most? I will say Charlie did not help his case by being like, I'm going to donate to a couple charities. Like it really, like he didn't really say it with as much conviction as maybe, but like you've seen, like he's been raising money for domestic violence. Like you can tell he's a good dude, but like he's not on the precipice of parenthood like Kenzie was. I thought Ben answered it really, really well. It's tricky because like on my season as well, we had the whole donation of the money, and I'm not 100% sure who knew, who didn't know going into that. And like, it makes you wonder, like, was that part of it? And I try not to go down that rabbit hole, because then I'll just like get upset all over again. And like, I've healed for the most part since it's been a couple of years. But yeah, like on one hand, it is important. Like you want to make sure your season, your experience is being validated in a way that you can like feel good about and feel like, okay, the money has gone to someone worthy and it's gone to a good cause or whatever. But at the same time, like I that is kind of teetering on the lines of like, is this about the game or is this about like, who would you, but that's the beauty of the show, right? Like that's the whole fucking point of the show is like, what would you do? How does this work? You're creating your own rules. You're creating your own society. So like, I'm not against people asking that question. It's just not a question that I would ever ask, I think.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I personally I really didn't think this question was going to cause as much controversy as it has on the internet. Like a lot of people are really upset about this one question. Whereas I vividly remember people getting voted out of Survivor back in the day because their story was too good, because they came from nothing and they worked and they're still working like all of this, whatever, and they can't go to the end because how am I going to beat that? You know what I mean? Like I'm thinking of like, I don't necessarily think that this is the only person that's coming to my mind right now is like Denise.
I just put that in the chat. Lunch Lady Denise. Yeah.
Lunch Lady Denise. Yeah. And so like, this has been a part of the game for forever. I think it's just kind of been with so many super fans going on this show now, and less people not as many people who might not know the show as well. I think it's kind of become more the more important thing, or the thing that is more talked about, is the title of Sole Survivor over the fact that it's $1 million. Like that's so much money. And I am just like, I don't know, if you really care about who this money is going towards, who this money is going to, I get that you wouldn't want to give it to somebody who you think doesn't need it, or you think wouldn't, use it in the way that you would want them to, whatever it is. Like, but that's the beauty of the jury. The jury can kind of like make up their own rules. Like you said, Owen, it's totally up to them. But, if you think somebody's story is better than yours, get rid of them. Like, get rid of them.
Made Noelle such a big target on 43. Yeah. And I think part of the reason there's been like controversy around it is because Q has said publicly like that was the only question he like cared about the answer for,
Yeah.
You think that was
which
the
is
only
just
one he listened
hilarious to
to?
me. Because like they're probably sat there for at least 2 hours. I heard it was a quicker final tribal council, but like upwards of 2 hours of information and discussion. He's like, nah, just go based on my question, which is honestly iconic. But
I love that
it's just
man.
funny. It's just fun. I do too. He's so funny. He's so
He is
funny.
so funny. He is so funny. I think about
He's
that.
younger than me, which kind of melts my brain a bit.
He has this gravitas about him, even though he's like kind of wild.
Mhm.
He just does have this gravitas around him. I think about his tweet about his wife daily.
Oh, about the
Yeah.
yes. Well, I loved the differentiation between the Twitter caption and the Instagram caption.
So that guy is so great. He's
amazing.
I would not be mad if he was on every single season of Survivor going forward. He was like the staple. He's just there on the island, and I'd be like, yeah, I think that
Yeah.
makes sense. I get it. He's
Yeah,
incredible.
he's awesome.
Well, so we obviously, I mean, we didn't really talk about the final fire. Obviously, I mean, we did kind of. Ben wins immunity, sends in Kenzie and Liz. Apparently, final fire went on forever. And they were worried that it was going to go to matches, which is stressful, like to think about. But
I thought it was going to because Survivor posted the clip of Sundra and Becky, so I thought that's where it was going. So they did let us know that it was not going to be a record-breaking performance.
And do you think it was because Jeff was like, you don't have to beat, or didn't somebody say like you don't have to beat records or something? Oh,
yeah.
He said, he was like, I didn't give you the stuff, so don't beat records. But he didn't mean to like also go real slow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a big bucket of stuff to practice with, which was nice. But yeah, that was a little tough to watch, and it does make it interesting with the whole like just thinking about fire making. Like, it's, do you practice it? Like, I don't know. It's just such a like, it's, everyone knows it's coming, but then like, should you invest so much time practicing in it? Like, I feel like there's other ways to do it, but then you see someone like Liz who gets to the end and she's like, oh shit, this is like the one thing that I didn't practice. This is going to be curtains for me now. Because it's, I don't know. It almost feels like a waste of time. Like when you're out there, especially because you don't want to like increase your threat level by practicing a lot. Because I'll tell you, doing fire on the beach is a hell of a lot different than doing it at home practicing. Like, it is very, very different. Because you don't want to like, I don't know, increase the target on yourself. It's a whole thing.
I will say, I thought it was like her whole, like the wrists of it all was her popping wrists. Mine do that too, but not that bad. Does Survivor exacerbate all of your aches and pops and pains, Owen? Yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself and I lost my mouse. It does, I think. I mean, not to make a Randon joke, but like the elements are harsh. Like, we've seen firsthand this season. We saw it, like we've seen it in the past. Like, it's an uncomfortable environment. It's a high stress environment. Like, I like crack my back all the time. I crack my neck all the time. You're just like sore and achy and just, you don't feel at 100% a lot. So yeah, I think that she probably could have done it better at home than in the elements there. But it was kind of, you could tell that Ben and Charlie were kind of getting bored watching. It was kind of funny to like peek over at them and see what was going on.
Oh man, final fire. I would not be mad if you're gone next season.
And you know what? We would get fire a lot of the time if they got rid of it. Probably.
Yeah.
Like who do you? So like, what would have happened here? You think if there was a final four vote here? What do you think? What do y'all think would have happened?
I mean, I think it would have been a fire between Kenzie and Charlie. I think, and I think Kenzie would be gone in that scenario. But
do you think Ben and Charlie stay together and vote for Kenzie, and then Kenzie and Liz stay together?
Maybe, and yeah, I do. And then, but maybe, I mean, if Ben really wanted Liz to go, maybe it's Liz, maybe it's Charlie Liz, and Liz still goes. But then I think if that's the case, then I think Charlie wins the season if he wins fire. So, you know, I think either way, either Kenzie doesn't win because Kenzie's out, or Kenzie doesn't win because I think Charlie wins if he plays fire, or if he does fire there. What do you guys think?
I still think Liz might have gone at this point if there was no fire.
Just
I
like a
could-
3-1.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know, because Charlie did say he would have taken her if he won. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe Kenzie would have gone.
Have you guys listened to the Omer Rob recap? Because this was a discussion that they had, and the thing that really that they talked about was if it wasn't a final fire, what would have happened at 5? Because then do you really need to go for Maria? And I think that that is a really good argument that they were both talking about, because I think you're right. If it's not a forced fire and there's a chance to get her out still, and you don't have, and that means you still have somebody else who's a bigger target than you, do you get somebody else out in that scenario? Do you get Charlie out? Do you get Liz out at that scenario? I could see a world in which Maria is still in the game at Final Four if there is no fire at the end.
I think there's a chance. I really liked Omer's thesis on that podcast. Definitely recommend it. But he was saying basically it just like shifts everything that you're thinking about by having forced fire making. I will say, at least in my experience, there was an element of challengeability that went into it. That's why, even though they edited it to make it look like Cassidy and I were on the fence, like, do we go Jesse? Do we go Carla? In my mind, it was always pretty clear, like, even though Jesse just pulled off this crazy move against Cody, he cannot win a challenge to save his life. Sorry, Jesse, love you. But Carla had already won 2. Like, she was more threatening, even though with her ankle injury, like, we felt like there was a higher chance that she would have won the challenge. So with Maria being as dominant in challenges as she was, I still think there's a solid chance that she goes out at 5. But just the fact that you're kind of handcuffed into thinking a one certain way with the forced fire making makes it a little bit frustrating for me. And like Omer and Rob said, like, you're gonna get fire making probably half the time anyway, so you'll still get those exciting TV moments. So yeah, I don't know, I'm all for getting rid of it.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Quick question: do y'all think Ben should have put himself in at all, or do you not think it matters? I mean, we saw with Heidi it doesn't really matter, but
I'm glad they didn't make it a whole
jury
point
maybe
this time, you know.
Yeah.
Because it was your season, right? People were like, why didn't you go in?
No,
Cassidy,
yes,
right?
yeah, because Cassidy, they were saying Cassidy should have put herself in,
Yeah.
which I think is ludicrous. I should have put myself, if I had won, I would have put myself in, but I think that's a totally different story. But yeah, like we saw, it was honestly a little relieving seeing Heidi go to fire, take out the biggest threat, and then still lose the game. Like, that was comforting in a way for me, just to know that it probably wouldn't have changed the outcome for me if I had won the last challenge. But it's just, it's interesting just how there's so much variance on people's opinion of the fire making as like impressive or who cares. I don't know. So yeah, Ben I think was cooked either way, but I don't know. I was just curious if y'all thought he should have considered it.
I don't think it would have made a difference if he
I think I agree, Cara.
I don't either. And I also think, like, I'm of the I think put yourself in fire if you think that that'll actually help your game. But if you think that you've played a good enough game and then you could stand on your own 2 feet without it, then I don't think that you should risk it, because the whole thing is like, well, you got to earn your way into Final 3. It's like, bro, I just didn't do it in front of you. I won a challenge, and that's why I can put myself in fire. So I absolutely did earn it. Thank you so much. You just weren't there to see me earn it. It was actually a lot harder than making fire. So like, I'm just of the camp of like, as long as you can get that idol on your neck, if you really think that it would swing 1 or 2 people in your direction, then absolutely go for it. But if you think I've either won because of my performance at Final Tribal Council or I've lost, then it is what it is. But you don't have to earn it, because I already did.
You already did.
I have the necklace on.
And we kind of talked about it a little like earlier, how like Ben chose Charlie to sit next to him in the end, and that was a point to his social game and everything, and how that really, like, no one really took that into consideration. But I feel like that is like a big deal. Like, someone wants you to sit next to them in the end, and I don't know, I feel like that should have been considered a little more than being put into fire and winning fire and then sitting in the end.
Yeah,
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
people have been talking about him as a threat though for multiple rounds. So yeah, I think that's a
Mhm.
really really good point. Like, and I was taken to the end, and I remember being so like, I think in the show they showed me going like, "Yay!" Like I was just like, "Oh, this sucks," getting dragged to the end. But I think it just depends on how you pitch it. And for Charlie being like obviously a more powerful player than I was, I think it's a badge of honor. Whereas for me, it's more like, okay, like you think you can beat me, which yeah, it's just it's so interesting just how like the lead up to this decision can have different ramifications on the final vote count and how things are perceived. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, Kara, that it should have been, I think, a point in Charlie's favor that he was viewed as like he used his relationships so well.
Yeah.
Did we hear him talk about that at all? Like being like, Ben brought me here, and I don't remember him really going on that much, but I could
I
be
don't
wrong.
remember.
I don't think he did, honestly, which I think is also, a lot, obviously a lot is going through your head at Final Trouble Counts. You're
Yeah.
not going to be able to hit all of the points of your game. You don't get a nice little cut down version of your game, 90 minutes a week for over 13 weeks. You have to, think of it all in your own head over
30
over time.
seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. And obviously Kenzie wins 5-3. She gets the votes of Tiffany, Q, Tevin, Venus, and Maria, correct? And then Charlie gets Soda, Liz, and Hunter, and Ben does not get a vote, unfortunately. But Kenzie is the winner of Survivor 46. Yay! Before we go to break, I know that it was a very big episode, a lot to talk about. Is there anything that you either of you wanted to hit on that we really didn't talk a bunch about? Have anything, Cara? You have anything that you wanted to discuss?
I feel like we talked about it all. I mean, maybe we'll talk about it when we come back, but like if it was a tie, how Ben said he would have voted for Charlie, which is interesting. I'm sure that's not easy for Charlie to even think about either because he was this close. But yeah, I thought that was interesting hearing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because like I don't know if Jeff asked him at the after show. Like, why didn't he ask him at the after show? Because then we would know.
Then we know
have a
really.
more
Right.
reliable answer. Because I do think it would have gone Charlie, but I don't know. We didn't really talk about Maria not voting for Charlie, which obviously is like been such a huge discourse on the internet this week, and we don't need to like relitigate the whole thing. I mean, to me, it was just surprising. She has her reasons, and her reasons are valid, and like that's the whole point of the game. But you got to think that's got to go down as one of the biggest like surprise, unpredictable votes in the history of the show. But that's showbiz. Like that's the whole point of the game is you want to get people's votes at the end. But I'm just curious if y'all thought maybe there was anything Charlie could have done differently to try to garner her vote at the end. Because I spoke earlier a little bit about what I think Kenzie did well to help earn it, but curious if you had thoughts on Charlie.
I don't know if there's anything he could have done. I think she decided earlier on, like you said, that she was voting for Kenzie. And we also talked about on the podcast in previous episodes that like this all kind of started with the reward Charlie won and he didn't take Maria on and they got the letters from home. And from there on, I don't think there was anything that he could really, I don't know if there was anything he could have done to change her mind to vote for him.
Yeah, I think, and here's the thing, I also think that they all had very good Final Tribal Council performances. And it's not like he totally like missed the ball, it's not like he whiffed it or whatever. He did a very good job at Final Tribal Council. And so good, I went into this finale in my heart of hearts, knowing that Kenzie was going to win. I didn't actually know, just to be clear. I just like knew it in my gut that Kenzie was going to win. And then at the end of Final Tribal Council, I went, oh my God, was I wrong? Because they all did such a good job. And particularly Charlie did such a good job at his, performance there. So I think if he had done a bad job at Final Tribal Council, obviously, but I just think that he said all the right things. I think I think you're right. And I do think the reason why, I think she said coming into it, she knew she was going to vote Kenzie, but she did say going up to actually vote, she was like, Kenzie, Charlie, I don't know which one. And I think that's a testament to how well they did at Final Tribal Council to even
Mhm.
sway her a little bit, because I do think that she was, staunchly voting for Kenzie.
And Tevin said
Yeah.
the same. He was on the fence too.
Mhm.
So it was,
Yeah.
great Final Tribal Council. And I would have been happy with either of them to win. Like, I would have been happy with Ben to win too. Final Five was a
Yeah.
great Final Five. I mean, this cast was a really great cast, but I truly would have been ecstatic with any kind of ending. So it was a great ending. I will say, I one thing I do want to say before we leave to the commercial is that I know that a lot of people have been giving Kenzie props for her social game, as she deserves. She has a great social game. But I do also want to say, I think she also was very good strategically, but knew when to step back, because she went to every tribal council except for two, and that being the one, one Sega one, and the other one that was it was a split tribal council. Obviously, a lot of strategy went on at Yanu, but Yanu drove those votes in the middle. And she knew if she kept being in that power position of, if we keep doing this, we will be seen as threats. And she knew then, okay, we've done what we needed to do. We've systematically got those other numbers down. Now that we are kind of going forward, we'll take a step back. And I think she has a lot of things that were really good. And so I just know that everyone's talking about her social game, but I think she was, was she as, in it during the merge as Charlie? No, but I still think that she's got a lot of really good notches on her belt or whatever the phrase is, in that strategy game as well, that I just wanted to give her praise for.
Well
She
said.
really had to survive.
She did.
Yep.
She did.
Yep. Well, we do have some questions that we are going to get to right after this ad break. And if you have any questions that, you are burning to ask us, make sure to put it in the comments so that we can get to it a little bit later. But we'll be right back after this.
Hi, Survivor Now podcast listeners. I am Katie from KT Designs, better known as Katie Tedesco Art, on both Instagram and Etsy. I have been designing and selling Survivor products for over 7 years at my Etsy shop, including replicas like hidden immunity idols and Survivor trading cards with all of the players' stats on the back. I am so grateful for Survivor Now for giving me this shout out and helping me reach even more superfans. I love listening to their podcast. So if you are looking for some really unique reality TV products for yourself or to give a superfan in your life, come check out my Etsy shop at www.etsy.com/shop/KatieTedescoArt.com.
All right, and we are.
Oh,
go ahead.
I have Katie's winner poster in my office, so that was cool to see an ad for something I have.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I love her stuff. She's so talented.
Yeah, it's cute. She is.
All right, let's get into social hour. We've got so many questions that were sent in for us, for Owen. So let's start with the one, the only, Ollie sent in. Was there a moment during the finale that you knew our Queen Mother Kenzie won? Owen, I'll start with you.
Yes, but I forget. I tweeted out like Kenzie is winning, like before they towards the end of Final Tribal. There was some answer that I think it was the Q's question. I think it was Q's question, where they asked about the money, what they would do. I thought she answered that beautifully. I mean, I don't need to restate everything I said, but I thought she was firm in her conviction. I loved the way she just owned it and said like, hey, like, I do this in my real life. I'm doing this for me. I think that's a perfectly valid answer. And it almost like, I don't know if like other people felt pressured to be like, I'm going to give some away after, what, like someone has given away $1 million. Who knows if that's like, that goes through people's heads now, but I really thought she crushed that answer. So that for me was when I saw the tide shifting.
Yeah, no, that her answer to that question was just so good, and her just owning it, like she's using the money for herself and she was being selfish, and I think it was a great answer. But also I just think Kenzie, she just had like the winner vibe just about her in general. I feel like the whole time I was like, if Kenzie's in the end, Kenzie is winning. There's just no way she's not, That's just how, I don't know. That's just how I felt about her. I thought she just gave winner energy.
Yeah, there was a moment where we were getting her, and so honestly, it was like a couple of episodes ago when I forget what moment it was, but it was like about a decision that was made or something that happened that had nothing to do with Kenzie, and we still got her perspective. And I know that's like reading the edit a little bit, which I know is not like, but in that moment, she had a great perspective on it. She had a really great little like quip, like whatever. And in that moment, I went, "Oh, Kenzie's winning the season." Like I felt it in my gut. And then I think the finale just kind of reaffirmed everything when Liz, did, went out and did that whole thing for Kenzie to win and to beat Maria, but like, to win. And I just think her Final Tribal Council performance was so good. I will say, just like, Maria and Tevin, I was like, was I wrong? Like, was my gut incorrect? But I feel like I've known in my gut for like the past like 2 or 3 episodes, which isn't like exactly what he asked, but I don't know. I just felt it. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of felt it preseason. I didn't choose her as my winner pick preseason. Ryan chose her as her winner pick, his winner pick preseason. But we did a live on TikTok where we were like going through actually, where is that? Oh no, I think I spilled water all over it. But I have a notebook. Oh no, I didn't. It's right here. Man. But I have a notebook of like so I wrote down where I thought everyone was going out. I put Maria as going out first. LOL. And I was deciding whether or not Tiffany was coming in third or Kenzie was coming in third, and the other person was going to win. And Ryan was also deciding between Tiffany and Kenzie too. And we just ended up choosing the other person. So we both whatever. But I just like felt it in my gut. Like she got this thing. Owen, did you have a winner pick preseason?
Yes, I did. It was Jess.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Rooting for Asians.
Love it.
Yeah, did not go great on the winner pick front, but it was so lovely to not be spoiled for a season, and I could just watch like a fan. So that was very nice.
And Cara, who was your winner pick?
My winner pick was Jelinski, and I think great winner pick.
I love it.
Jelinski, he's so incredibly nice. I love that kid. He's really great. Really, really great.
I like how we all chose Yanu. We all knew. Yeah. We all knew it was going to be a Yanu.
Purple vibes.
Purple vibes. Purple vibes. Okay, we've got this quiz. It's not a quiz. This question from Benelli. Benil. Thoughts on Liz not being a billionaire nor a millionaire? And to expand on that, do we think this is interesting strategy to kind of like exaggerate your, life a little bit? Cara, I'll start with you. Go ahead, Owen. No, go ahead, Owen.
Okay, fine. I love it. I think it's hilarious. I think it's low-key kind of genius. It's just so crazy. It might have worked. I don't think it would have worked with this group of people, but I think there is something to be said for like playing up an element of your personality or life that you think might make you threatening and just like lean into it in a way that disarms you a bit. And then to pull off the caper, like everyone says, like if Coach had just done his final tribal differently in South Pacific and said like, I wanted you to think I was this crazy cult leader type person and follow me to the end. Like if he had owned it a little bit differently, he would have beat Sophie. So I think, who knows? I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that play out at Final Tribal Council, and just to see what the jury would think of that. And it also shows that Liz was playing from the beginning. Like she came in with this idea, this strategy, and she was following through with it the whole time. So it would have been great to see that play out in the end. And who knows, maybe her answer to Q's question could have swayed him and he could have voted for her,
Yeah, great point. I loved it. I think that's a great, because I don't like lying about I don't think like lying about your job or really anything that's super, integral to who you are as a person I think it's really hard to do because you have to lie 24/7. I mean, I guess I'm a yapper. And so like I talk about my job a lot. Like I talk about my life a lot because I just talk a lot. So it might not be as difficult for other people who don't talk as much as me. But I just think that like having to lie all the time is difficult, but having to exaggerate all the time, that's a completely different story. Like exaggerating something is great. It's so much easier to do. It's why my stories are good. No, I'm just kidding. But but just like exaggerating is a half truth. And I think a half truth is a lot easier to do than a full lie. And I love this strategy, and I wouldn't be mad at more people doing it. Like I think that like if you don't want to tell your job and you're a lawyer or you're something or you're a doctor, you don't want to say you're a doctor, say you're in med school, or say, you know, you're in law school, or, you know, I'm an events director at a restaurant, which it's not that threatening of a job, but if I needed to lie about my job, I have been a host and I still work with hosts all the time. I could very easily say I'm a host at a restaurant and have all of my stories still work because it's in the same kind of vein. I'm a huge fan of a half truth. Huge fan. They should do more of it. Okay, this is kind of an interesting one for Owen specifically. So Diary of the Dioscuri, they have a question every single time, and I can never pronounce it. Owen, will you explain what and where Ponderosa is, and is that where the film crew stays? Obviously, I don't know how much you can say, but
yeah, well, I won't give the specific names of the places, but no, so the crews stay separate from the cast. So there is a bit of a pregame, as has been discussed in the preseason interviews, where the cast, once they get to Fiji, they stay at a certain place, and it's very dressed down. You know, there's not the video game room and this and that like that they have in the old Ponderosa videos, but you know, it's still a really beautiful place. But you're there for a few days to get acclimated to the time change, go through your interviews, do your last medical checks, that sort of stuff. And that's where you start sizing everybody up. And then that's the same place where you return once you get voted out or once the game's over. And then once you're back, it's a lot of a different vibe. You know, there's you're drinking alcohol, you're watching movies, you're working out, you're hanging out, you're sleeping in a real bed. It's supposed to be like, you know, soften the blow. It's like your little Fijian vacation. I'm sad. I was only at Ponderosa for about 20 hours after Final Tribal Council. I was just a quick in and out, stuffed my face. The next day, what did I do? I woke up early, got a massage, ate more food, and just chilled. And then we left for the airport. So it was really quick. The crew stays at another location. I believe that's a little bit more central to the action, so they can get the camera crews out and go to challenges, this and that. But it is quite a production. And I think part of the reason why, I mean, when I was talking earlier about like 26 days is here to stay, I do think Fiji is probably here to stay as well. Just because like the elements and the way everything's laid out, I imagine that for production, it's really like easy at this point. You know, they've got the relationship with the Fijian government, they've got the relationship with local employees, they've got the relationship with these resorts, and then everything is pretty close together as well. The boat rides are manageable times, so I think it's a really sweet setup, and it is beautiful. It's such a beautiful place.
It is. I don't mind the Fiji. I don't need them to move. I would like a theme, but I don't need them to move from Fiji. It doesn't bother me at all.
I'm with you.
Agreed.
Okay, so we've got this question from Big Show Gunny. How would you three rank the new era? Owen, can you do new era minus 43? Owen, you can do it with 43.
I'll do it with 43. Y'all go first though. I'm curious your opinions.
Okay, but we all have to agree here. We're all friends, and no one's gonna be upset at any of us for any of the rankings that we may or may not do.
I would never be offended. It's okay.
Okay, as long as you promise.
I pinky promise. I was on the internet December 2022. It's okay. I'm prepared.
I would rank this one pretty high. I would rank 40. I haven't done this with 46 yet, but I would definitely say 46 is up there. It's the most fun I've had watching a season. I don't know if it is the best or my favorite. I think I would still rank 45 as number one for me. I haven't rewatched either of them yet. So I would still rank 45 as number one. I think I would do 46 and 44 very close second and third, because I've got similar feelings from 46 and 44. And then I would probably do 42 a little bit further away. And then 43 and 41 could be interchangeable at the bottom. I'm sorry.
Rank them, coward. You can do it. You can say it. You can put a 6. I won't be offended.
Nope. Okay. The reason here is the thing. I'm going to defend why. 41 I liked a lot because we had just had Survivor back. And I thought 41 in my head could do no wrong because at least I had Survivor on my screen again. And I actually think I like 41 a lot more than other people because I vividly remember how happy I was that Survivor was on my TV. And yeah, so I guess I guess that's how I'm gonna rank them. I'm sorry.
That's valid. I love it. We all have our own reasons and like where we were in life when it came out. I'm not offended.
Okay. Cara,
Hmm.
you can go now.
Okay, I feel like this is definitely gonna be a hot take, honestly. And I'm honestly I haven't thought about this before. I'm just doing this now. So I think I'm gonna do 46 as number 1, 45 is number 2, 41 is my third, and then 40 40 42, 43, 44.
Wow.
Wow.
I don't know why. I feel like 40, I don't know, 44 last, I guess, yeah. I feel like that's definitely a hot take.
I respect it.
I don't hate it. Because part of what I've thought about also, I haven't really rewatched any seasons, but I do think, Cara, that 44 is going to age poorly on a rewatch. And I think 46 will actually age very well because I think a lot of the frustrations people had with those first 4 episodes, if you're doing a binge, you'll cruise through the Banu experience and it won't quite feel it's so different watching it all in a row rather than having a week of discussion in between. So I think for me, I think 45 is my favorite of the new era. My personal twist on that is because watching Jake felt so parallel to my experience. I was really invested in him because it just felt
even had the Charlie Brown reference.
The Charlie Brown, yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh my God, you can do it. And then Austin as well. And Kelly was our alternate. So I had some really vested interest in it. I have 46 at number 2. I have 42 at number 3. I really like the cast of 42. I didn't love the hourglass and all that, obviously, but I had fun watching 42, although my memory of the end game is weird because I binged it on the plane on the flight home from playing Survivor. So I was not necessarily in the best place to watch it, but I just really love the cast and everything. This is my bias coming through a little bit, but I have 43 at 4th. I do think 43 will be better on a binge than it will be watching it week to week. And I think for a lot of viewers, knowing the end result going into the rewatch will make you appreciate the edit a little bit more. 44, I have at 5th. 41, I have at 6th. 44, I just wish they had edited it a little bit more evenly. Say what you will about my season, but the final 6 all had pretty even edits. Whereas this year and with 44, there's a very distinct 3 and 3. And I just think that makes it a little bit tougher to watch when you know who the main power players are. So yeah, that is my official list. I've never said that before, but yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Cause yeah, I loved the 44 cast, but I was like, show us more Franny, show us more Kane, show us more people. Don't get me wrong. I love the Tika 3. They were great characters, but the discrepancy was pretty wild. I ran the data when I did an episode with Rob during 44 and just the variance between the edits was just a little too much for me to get over.
I think that's I love that we all had different ones. That makes me really, really happy. Yeah, I think I totally, honestly, the more you guys talk about 44, the more I'm I think I'm rethinking where I put it. I will say I'm somebody who still says WandaVision is one of my favorite TV shows, even though I know how it ended poorly, but I vividly remember the world in which I was in. And I was just so in it on TikTok. And I was like, it could be this and it could be this and it could be this. And that's 44 was the first season that I was doing it on TikTok. I was really, people were actually engaging with me on TikTok and all that stuff. And so I feel I've got to, give it its flowers for that.
Place in your heart.
Yeah. But I think you're totally right. I've never even thought about it with the edit. I think that's a really good,
poor Jamie and Lauren. We barely got anything from them, and they were in the final 5. I don't know.
And they were and they were talking about how even people were a huge threat. I remember thinking like at the finale, I was like, wait, what is that? When did that happen? And everyone was agreeing. And I was like, I think it was like Lauren they were talking about, or maybe it was Jamie. I can't remember. It was one of the two. I was like, well, you don't want to blindside the audience. Great point.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got this question from Soy Sauce 33. Are cute, sweet men destined to forever be third place zero vote finalists?
That's very sweet to say. Yeah, you know, we're a wholesome bunch. We're a wholesome bunch. It's a good crew. It is interesting and low key. Like I'm here for it. I guess that it is mostly men that have been in this zero vote finalist spot. So yeah, it's a good group. I'm tight with those guys, and it's a weird like subset of the Survivor community. I mean, that's been such a fun part for me, from going to being a fan to being a player, and like getting to know all these other players and having this group of people that I've had the shared experience with. But then to have these couple particular people where we've had such a unique experience and such a bad experience in certain ways, it's nice to have each other. In Chicago, I had a nice chat with Jake and Xander, and we were just kind of, you know, just hugged it out, talked and everything. It was fun. It's nice to know you're not alone in that experience.
Speaking of Mr. Jake O'Kane, we have a question from
Hey.
O'Kane. How hard do zero vote finalists rock?
We rock hard, dude. What do we rip, we shred, all the above. Yeah, it's a good crew. Ain't a bad club to be a part of.
Someone said men plus Carolyn, but also Michelle was a zero vote finalist in 40. Somebody was a zero vote finalist in 39. Who was a zero vote finalist in Angelina?
Oh, Nora. Angelina, yeah.
Angelina.
Troy, Zan.
They're all there.
Julie, yeah.
Laurel.
There's a crew. Laurel, yep.
There's a crew.
Yeah, but recently, though, it is interesting. Recently, it's been, 5 men of the 6?
Yep. Very interesting. Okay, we've got another question. So this one is kind of an interesting one because it's not about 46. It's kind of a theory question about Australian Outback. If Colby took Keith to the end and not Tina in season 2, would he have won?
I think it's a definitive yes, right? Nobody liked Keith. Chef Keith was he was a little curmudgeonly about the food. Him and Jerry hated each other. I forget who said this. I listened to this one point, but Colby probably made more money by being the noble gentleman who took Tina to the end, and then that led to his career, like hosting stuff and this and that. Like he probably did more than $1 million worth of good PR by taking Tina to the end and like staying on brand with his like Captain America thing. But I'll tell you, I listened to the Rob Has a Podcast live show from Austin that they did in like 2017 or 18. And listening to Colby on the podcast was such a trip for me, because like that was right around when I rediscovered my love for the show, and like seeing someone that I like loved when I first watched it, to then like talking, 15 years later about the show. It was funny. But yeah, I think he definitely would have been a winner.
I think you're probably right. But you're right. I think I think there's something to say about, and even bring it to 46. Like there's something to say. Obviously, Charlie sad he didn't win, right? But I kind of think this whole controversy has now given Charlie a lock for 50.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the first calls. He's a great player. He's a great player.
Everyone loved him. People were, upset about the whole thing. And honestly, most of the upset is not that Kenzie won. I think most of the upset is how the votes, ended up going. But I mean, am I someone who typically looks at the silver lining? Yeah. But like, I genuinely think that he's got to be one of the first calls that they make for 50. I think it's him and Q. I think they're guaranteed for 50. Because
Carolyn too.
Yeah, and Carolyn, yeah. So I think that there's a silver lining to not winning. Maybe he could win the $2 million that 50 will bring, or whatever. A nice little. Okay, we also have a question about Charlie, actually. Chloe Christensen says, do you think Charlie had a true chance to fully explain his game at Final Tribal Council, I'm assuming?
I think probably. I mean, those things go on for a while. I mean, the 30-second thing, that was just one question. I don't know how long the total discussion went, or if people asked multiple questions, but I'm sure there were opportunities for it. I will say, I said this earlier, just like not having an opening statement to set the table, that is a little, maybe that would have done him some good, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just judging on from what we saw on TV, I would probably say no, but like we know that it goes on way longer than what we see, so he probably did have enough time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it was only one question that was limited to 30 seconds. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
it was limited all the time. Here's
Exactly.
here's another real question. Do you think if he was allowed to make Taylor Swift references, he would have done better? Like, is that something that he like needs to really up his game? Is making all of the Taylor Swift references? Who knows? Who knows?
Just the way his brain works lets him
probably would've
operate
made
at full
good ones.
capacity.
Probably would make exactly.
Yeah.
We've got one last question, and this is a question specifically for Cara, but I think we should all answer. Big Show Gano. I don't know. What seasons are Cara's favorites? And then I do also want to hear Owen, your favorite seasons.
Okay, so my favorite is definitely Kagayan. That's the first season I saw, so I think that was just a great season. And then I really liked Millennials versus Gen X. I feel like those are my two favorites, besides like the ones in the like, like I just said I liked 46, like that would be up there too, but those two.
Yeah. Owen, do you have a favorite season?
I think if I had to pick one, David versus Goliath might be up there. Heroes versus Villains. Those are kind of the two obvious jockeying for first and second. And then the two that I really love that aren't always in people's like top 5 are Philippines and San Juan del Sur. I really enjoy both of those. Yeah.
Brian Corden roasted me for saying, I think that it was like 2 episodes ago, he was like, San Juan del Sur is the one that you go to for a really good gameplay or something. Like he was roasting me for liking San Juan del Sur. Love San Juan del Sur. Mine, I always say I have 3, and it's Heroes versus Villains, Dave versus Goliath. And then Dave versus Goliath was the first one that I watched live. So not only is it a really good season, it also was the first one that I was able to watch live. But then Guatemala. I love Guatemala. I think Guatemala is
That's a hot take.
Yeah. I think opening up the season with a 12-mile hike at night is crazy and just kind of shows you where that season is going from there. Like, I love Guatemala. It's one of my faves.
Wow.
One of my faves. I know. All right. So thank you for everyone who sent in questions. I love that part of the episode because I think it really opens up the discussion, especially for a finale episode like this. We do have 2 more things to do. We have to get to Cara's sweet thing of the episode. So, Cara, tell the new viewers what a sweet thing is.
Okay, so a sweet thing is, so I have a podcast with my cousin Kateri called the Sweet Things Podcast. At the end of each episode, we give our sweet thing of the week, and it's usually our favorite like sweet treat. But for Survivor, it's a little different. And for this episode, my sweet thing of the week is Ben winning that final immunity challenge. I thought that was just such a good moment. I was so happy for him that he won and he had that moment. So that is my sweet thing this week.
That is a really good one. And at the finale, it was like, that was so emotional to watch him like celebrate. It was a really great moment. Really good one.
Yeah.
Owen, do you have a sweet thing of the episode?
I mean, that's a tough answer to beat. I thought that was beautiful. And that's the, the underdog who's been beat down all game, all his night terrors. Yeah, I was like tearing up watching him celebrate. And then I thought the edit was really great when it cut to him like realizing that he was going to have to decide. I guess another Ben moment. I liked Kenzie and Ben at the sanctuary, the Survivor besties. It reminded me of me and Cassidy going when I won the Final 5 challenge. So that was a nice trip down memory lane. And their food looked good. I remember looking like during the episode, I was like, that looks pretty good. Like I was like, oh, they got some bow tie action in the pasta. Like I don't know. I was expecting spaghetti and meat sauce, but it looked like they had some farfalle with pesto. So that looked pretty yummy.
I think that both of what you said are the correct, like exactly like Ben's moment was so emotional and so good. I will say, when Kenzie won Fire for me, I cried a lot. I have a video of me just like crying, saying congratulations. So I feel like that might be the sweet thing moment for me, just because like I was like so happy for that, but both really good answers. And the last thing we've got today, the final social butterfly of the award of the episode and of the season. I feel like this is not going to be a difficult decision for us to make. I don't know. Do we all want to say it on 3? Okay, ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Kenzie.
Kenzie.
I mean, it would be really hard to give it to anybody else, especially since she was such a social player.
Yeah,
Charlie's a close
completely agree.
runner-up.
Close runner-up. Close runner-up. And in the social butterfly, obviously it's, you know, that's the important thing. Charlie was really gunning for that social butterfly award, and I'm really sorry, you know, nothing else really mattered in this finale, not coming a runner-up to win the game. It was the runner-up to social butterfly. I know. Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone who stayed around and chatted with us about Survivor, the finale 46. Thank you so much to Owen for joining us. It was so much fun talking to you about the finale. Owen, before you go, can you tell people where they can find you? Anything you're doing?
Yeah, nothing crazy new going on in my life. Just the Young Knight on Instagram, and then the O is a 0 if you want to find me on Twitter. But yeah, just living life. Heading to Bonnaroo in a couple weeks to go to the festival. Cassidy and I are going actually, so that'll be fun. And then yeah, just kind of laying low and getting ready for my wedding in the fall. So yeah, life is good.
That's awesome. I had somebody in my TikTok comment saying that, oh my God, you're talking to Owen. I think he admitted me to Tulane.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That's cute.
There was no cap or no name. It was just like a user like 723, whatever it is.
I do admit people to Tulane. That is my day job.
I thought that was kind of cool. Cara,
cool.
Where can people find you?
Yeah. Yep. You can find me at Sweet Thanks Podcast on Instagram, and you can find a new episode every Thursday wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can also follow me on Instagram at XOX_Cara. This has been so fun doing this for this whole season and getting to talk with Tegwyth every week and getting to talk with Owen tonight. So thanks for having me on Survivor Social this season. I had so much fun joining the team.
It was amazing. This season was so much fun to, cover, to talk with you, Cara. And I think we really ended on a great note. Again, Owen, thank you so much for joining us. As always, you can find us on, you can find me on Instagram or TikTok, really. And I love chatting Survivor with people. So make sure to, message me, DM me. I love to talk about Survivor. So, and now that it's over, I don't know what to do with my life or my time. Maybe just watch Australian Survivor or something. We'll see.
Have you not watched it before? You gotta, it's
so good.
I have watched the first season and then from Blood versus Water on, but there are,
2017 is a good one. Season 2, it's a banger.
Brian and I watched like 3 episodes, and then we had to stop because it was like way too much watching it with an Australian Survivor season going on. But we think we're gonna go back to it during this off season, especially since there's not even like Big Brother for like a month. It's gonna be a great break for my brain. But thank you all so much for tuning in and chatting with us. Remember to like and subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube and Spotify, and we will see you next season. Oh, sad.